All right, but there's some good news. Even though the Earth has been warming, and even though there are these positive feedbacks that either have been triggered or can be triggered, there's also some other possibilities as well. A good possibility involves the impact that clouds may have on Earth's climate. Now, this one is kind of uncertain, but it's worth mentioning anyway. And here's basically what happens in this case. Earth warms. That results in more water vapor evaporating. More water vapor evaporating means there's now more moisture in the air. We already covered the fact that that actually increases the greenhouse effect, but moisture usually doesn't like to stay a gas for long. And what that means is a lot of this is also going to lead to a lot of condensation. And a lot of condensation means a lot of clouds. Now, if you remember from a few modules ago, clouds can actually have one of two impacts on Earth. Clouds can actually have a cooling effect due to their enhanced albedo effect, but some clouds can also have a warming effect. So this is highly uncertain, but at least it's one sign of hope that perhaps this may be a natural way that climate change may actually be at least slowed down somewhat. And so, as I just mentioned, depending on the type of cloud that forms, if it's a low cloud, it's going to have a stronger albedo effect. If it's a high cloud, it's going to have a stronger greenhouse effect. And so we're not really sure which one of these would be triggered, but it is at least worth noting that one of these could be triggered. And of those, I don't know why this image ended up down here. I tried to put it up over here, but that's okay. We'll roll with it because that's how I roll. There are two potential routes that this could take. We could either see a warming, or sorry, we could either see a cooling due to increased radiation being reflected, or we could see a warming due to an increased trapping of radiation. Now, one side, the right-hand side, is a positive, the right-hand side is a positive feedback going from warming to more evaporation, to more clouds, to more heat being trapped by those clouds. That would cause net warming. That would be a positive feedback. On the other hand, the other side, warming means more clouds, means more radiation reflected, means cooling. That could be a negative effect. That could be a negative loop. That could be a negative feedback. Other negative feedbacks may also kick in, such as the chemical weathering feedback. If you remember from a couple modules ago, we talked about chemical weathering and the potential that it may have. Chemical weathering starts with the Earth warming, additional net precipitation, additional absorption of that precipitation, and that results in more carbon dioxide being taken out of the atmosphere because precipitation absorbs that carbon dioxide and then reacts with silicate-based rocks that are on hillsides, that are on the surface of the Earth through chemical weathering. And what that ultimately results in is less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and a decrease in the greenhouse effect. So the idea here is that the greenhouse effect could actually be diminished by negative feedback loops such as chemical weathering. More warming leads to more precipitation, leads to more carbon dioxide being taken out of the atmosphere and then transported into rocks. So that is a potential negative feedback that could kick in that wouldn't necessarily counteract all the positive feedbacks, but could at least slow things down a little bit. The last thing, and I'll just briefly talk about this really quickly. This is a cool little video taken from the University of Oklahoma. I don't feel comfortable playing this video right here because I don't want to take this from this particular professor, but I will link it in the description of this video. But it's a video that actually demonstrates how carbon dioxide can be dissolved in water and how that can actually lead to slightly acidifying the water, which then allows it to chemically weather rock, which then allows it to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Um, so just to review all of this stuff, before we move on to talking about other natural changes, a positive feedback mechanism enhances an initial change. A negative feedback mechanism diminishes an initial change. And once again, our initial change is Earth warming. And that could trigger more ice being melted, which would further warm the Earth. Additional fires, which would release more carbon dioxide, that could further warm the Earth. Additional drought, which would lead to additional fires, which is kind of what we're seeing here in California, which could lead to more warming. More water vapor, because a warmer world is a wetter world, that could lead to more warming. More clouds, depending on the type of clouds that form, that's kind of an uncertain feedback. And then finally, chemical weathering, which could be a negative feedback. Now, to tie this all in together really quickly, before we go on to things such as the Milankovitch cycles and other natural causes of climate change, what is the ultimate result of this? Well, the ultimate result is that positive feedbacks far outweigh negative feedbacks, both in number and in intensity. So we are seeing more positive feedbacks than we are negative feedbacks. And what that actually results in is that results in warming accelerating. And we've actually seen that in the last 20 years. The amount of warming and the rate of warming has actually been accelerating. We have been warming faster in the past 20, 30 years than we have in the past 140 years. Now, we're unsure of a tipping point. We're not totally sure if we've actually triggered any of these feedback loops yet. I think the ice albedo feedback is one that I'm particularly concerned about. But we're not totally sure if we have triggered the tipping point of kicking off any of these feedbacks. However, a common argument, and one that was actually the centerpiece of the formation of the Paris Agreement, is that 2 degrees Celsius of warming, we're already about halfway there, could actually be seen as sort of the tipping point where after that, the amount of warming and the rate of warming may actually be out of our control. That we can begin to really see danger if we allow the Earth to warm by 2 degrees of Celsius. And once again, we've already warmed by 1. So we're already halfway there. And so really one of the big goals of the Paris Agreement was to actually stop warming at 2 degrees. And there's a lot of uncertainty about if that's even possible, but it's at least worth pursuing. And many people have even pushed for 1.5. So that's it for positive and negative feedback. So I'm going to continue on now and talking a little bit about natural causes. I have a few videos that I've already recorded that cover those, and I have a little bit of other stuff that I'll throw in. So that's what we're talking about next. Other natural causes of climate change. So I'll see you there. Oops. Take 2. I'll see you there. I had something in my eye.